Everything just changed for the Toronto Maple Leafs as we have a wild update as it pertains to multiple injuries, including Jake McCabe. We're going to break that down and discuss what it means going forward, as well as some other updates ahead of tomorrow's big game against the Blue Jackets. But before we get into it, a quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. About 71% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel, and we will be live following tomorrow night's game, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Darius, got some interesting news today, and it's not necessarily the news that a lot of Leafs fans wanted to hear as it pertains to both David Kampf and, more importantly, arguably, Jake McCabe. I think Jake McCabe is a bit more important, but regardless, missing both these guys is going to be pretty bad going forward. But let's dive right into it here. Let's not waste any more time. So David Kampf and Jake McCabe today are not taking part in the Leafs practice this morning, and this was the big piece of news that dropped today until, of course, Craig Berube came out and gave another update. They will not be playing tomorrow against Columbus, so Philip Myers replaces, of course, Jake McCabe, and Nick Robertson replaces David Kampf. We'll dive into lines in a minute here, but Darius, not great. Now, we expected David Kampf to be missing the game. They are going to keep Jake McCabe out. We'll dive into the quotes in a minute from Craig Berube surrounding the specifics of the injury, even though there's not a ton there. It is, from what we can tell, very weird situation, because we still do not know what Jake McCabe's injury is, which is leaning me to believe it's either something very bad or a concussion type thing where they don't know for sure and haven't gotten the results back yet. But what are your thoughts on this? You cannot lose Jake McCabe for the playoffs, but also trying to stay ahead here in the Atlantic Division.
That's kind of where I was going with this too. I think that it might be something to do with a concussion. Like, I mean, he was dealing with this earlier this season too. He missed some time. If you remember, it was day to day at one point, and then all of a sudden he was week to week, right? And he was out for a little while. So he was dealing with something earlier in the season. And you know what? They haven't really said too much on specifics. We'll get to that in a second too. But in terms of what they have said and what has happened and us actually seeing the injury, I'm not too worried. I wonder if it is precautionary, where it's like, okay, he's not feeling 100%. Let's just keep him out for the game. We're playing Columbus. We should win this game, but the Leafs are a team of a lot of shoulds. So, we should win this game. We'll keep him out of the lineup, and it gets, Philip Meyer an opportunity to come back into the lineup. So, and he hasn't played in quite some time. But David Kampf, I mean, he left the game early, right? And he didn't return. So that's a little bit more worrisome to me, but they're both labeled as day to day right now. So again, take that with a grain of salt. This is the Toronto Maple Leafs. It could end up week to week. But to me, I still think McCabe's was less concerning just because he basically finished the game and it happened right at the end of the game. And then I thought it was more precautionary. So I'm leaning on the side of that still. But the fact that David Kampf actually missed an entire period is a little worrisome to me. And we'll see how the lineup looks exactly tomorrow when they do solidify the lines and when they do skate. Obviously, we have an idea, and we'll get to the lines in a second from practice today. But it's going to be very interesting down the stretch here because they need these guys, and bad timing for injuries.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the Jake McCabe situation only because if he misses, I think, the next game and games beyond that, then there's a real cause for concern here because you talked about week to week. The playoffs are in 3-ish weeks, a bit less than 3 weeks. April 19th is the tentative date, so there's not a lot of weeks to be missing, and we know flashbacks to the last year with the Bruins. Willie missed games. Matthews missed games. Bobby McMahon missed the whole thing. Like, the Leafs cannot, hopefully this year, where everything is starting to click with the team at the right time, they don't go out with Jake McCabe. And yeah, you mentioned David Kampf. I think his injury could be more severe. But even missing David Kampf's pretty big here. Let's dive into the lineups. Now, there's a couple things. So, Nyes, Matthews, Marner, the top six remains the same. That is the top six that's going to be heading into the playoffs. Honestly, I think this is very similar to the top nine that's going to be heading into the playoffs, aside from Cal Yarncroke. Maybe Pacioretty gets in there. But the fourth line now, instead of David Kampf, you're replacing Kampf with Nick Robertson, who's in the fourth line, and you move Holmberg over to the center position, which I don't necessarily hate. I think it's a fine trade-off. You get Nick Robertson in. I don't think he plays great on the fourth line. I don't think he hasn't played well enough this season to really generate a ton of chances on that fourth line when he's been there, but I think it's smart keeping that third line together. They've been playing very well as of late. And then you have Pacioretty as, on the fifth, the guy, on the outside looking in. But the interesting thing now is if David Kampf goes in the LTIR, that opens up a ton of salary because of how much he gets paid. Pacioretty could come back in, replacing Yarncroke or Robertson. That's going to be a big question going forward. But the blue line now, you have Riley, Carlo, OEL, Tanev, Benoit Myers. And the unfortunate part is you're switching up your most dominant D pair, one of the most dominant D pairs in the NHL in Chris Tanev and Jake McCabe. OEL will be a fine replacement, but it also gets Myers in there, and I wonder if we see a Hakanpää game at some point if McCabe misses any period of time here. But very, very interesting to me, and quite unfortunate that McCabe is missing the game, though if there was a game to miss, you would rather him miss one against the Blue Jackets compared to the one game against the Panthers and one game against the Lightning they have left.
Yeah, for sure. And if Hakanpää was to get into the lineup, they would have to bury some salary. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully you're not putting McCabe on LTIR or David Camp, but we'll see what happens with that. And again, they're labeled as day to day, so we'll see how it progresses over the next couple of days. But in terms of the forwards, I mean, the top two lines are solidified to me at this point. This is exactly what it's going to be going into the playoffs in terms of the top two lines. Now, Robertson coming in on the fourth line, I think, is less about him as a player and more about Craig Berube, and I think that he's found something that he likes there with that current third line, with Yarncroke on the third line, because he's not splitting them up. He's not putting Yarncroke down on the fourth line to put Robertson back on the third line where he has spent some time. He certainly likes something that he sees with that third line, and they've been playing pretty good. Like the fact that Yarncroke has missed an entire year, and yes, he's not scoring and he's not doing anything like that, but the fact that he's putting in the work that he is, and he looks the way that he does out there is pretty impressive to me, honestly. So, I think that he's going to stay there on that third line. He has the ability to kind of chip in for points and goals here and there, and I feel like he can in the playoffs. So that's going to be interesting to monitor too, because I think that he's found something there with that third line, kind of like a role and a purpose for that line. And in terms of the fourth line, I think it's saying that Robertson gets in because there's injuries, but when we go to the playoffs, all things equal, if people are healthy, Robertson won't be in the playoff lineup. And what happens with Max Pacioretty as well, right? Where does he come in and where does he factor into things? So it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses, the bottom, two lines there. And then in terms of the defense pairing, I do have faith in a lot of them still. I have faith in Benoit to bounce back as well. He has done it at times this season. We've seen it. Him playing with Myers is going to be it's going to be a treat to watch. That's for sure. That's certainly going to be something. But OEL playing with Tanev, we've seen it earlier this season. It's been okay. I think OEL has been pretty good this season. So again, I think I'm more concerned right now in terms of defense. Obviously, McCabe should return, right, by all accounts, so it should be fine. But I'm more concerned with the Riley Carlo pairing and how that continues to progress because they are looking better, and I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, you can see here David Camp and Jake McCabe will be out against Columbus tomorrow. Craig Berube said right now it's a day to day. I can't really comment on that too much about how long it's going to be, so that's a little bit concerning. I think I'm a little bit more concerned about McCabe than you are. If he is out for a while, that's going to be a major concern heading into the playoffs. But hopefully, he's only going to be out for a little bit there. And yeah, I mean, Philip Myers, he's been fine. He hasn't been disastrous or anything. So hopefully, I mean, he was pretty bad before he got benched, but hopefully he can, at the very least, maybe this gives McCabe a bit of rest. He's been playing a ton, and obviously he's already missed some time this season due to injuries. But a couple other things here in practice today, adding to the injury bug a little bit. Brandon Carlo delivered a hard shove to Max Domi into the end boards during a rush of practice, and Max responded. Carlo looking remorseful and skated over to check on him. They're both good, and that's another note as well. Max Domi's playing the best hockey of his season right now over the past little bit in the month of March. Similar to what he did last year, and he carried it over into the playoffs last year against the Bruins. So hopefully Domi can carry it over into the playoffs against whoever it is this year. But it is going to be a very interesting game on Saturday, which is tomorrow, of course. But it's also going to be interesting for the rest of the season. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. Regarding the goaltending, it's still kind of up in the air. There wasn't too much about it. My guess would be Stolarz, but it could also end up being Joseph Woll, depending on how things go. So I'll have updates for you there. Any final thoughts, Sirius?
Yeah, I think it's actually going to be Wool tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning skate. We'll get our definite answer there. But yeah, I think a lot of that makes a lot of sense. And the scrum this morning with Domi and Carlo, I like to see that stuff, right? It's competitive, fiery. I like to see that. I feel like good teams have that stuff because you want to bring the best out of not just yourself, but others, right? In practice, no matter the situation. So I don't ever look at these things like bad things. I think this is a really good thing for the team, and it's just going to make them that much stronger and tighter in the room. So I do like stuff like that, as long as nobody gets hurt, obviously. But it looked like it wasn't anything too crazy. So I like to see it. I like to see it. It's competitive and fiery, and you need that heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what your thoughts are on that. We'll have a video for you coming later in tomorrow following the game. There will be a live stream. Each game matters a ton now, so make sure to tune into those. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.